Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome to you to this evening's Taneytown Comp Plan Committee meeting. Would you please stand to the pledge of the flag? Flag of the United States of America. Records reflect the committee members are here. Tony and Kirk, thank you. Craig, thank you. Another senior moment. Over for the agenda, we need to review the minutes from July 22nd, see if any comments or anything needs to be modified or adjusted. I have a chance to look at them. I had a couple little questions. I gather we got the updates for the municipal growth element, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sixth bulletin down on that same page, it says the addition for the Taneytown Elementary School. Do we want that to say to the Taneytown Elementary School instead of for? Opinion? Okay, we're good. Okay. Next bulletin down, I think those responses there, I think they needed to be updated. I don't think they were accurate. Said something about last month, where somebody was going to recheck the county on those. Is that correct or not correct? Talking about 6 minutes for the average response time. All these figures are before we went with the county EMS system. So do we want to put obsolete information in, or do we want the up-to-date as of present date?
I want the latest and greatest.
Because this is misleading.
Update that.
I guess for the purpose of the minutes, if the bullet point is what was discussed, but we can certainly make sure that we do use, as fresh information as we can.
Where it goes in the final report, I'd like to see it updated with the present. I had, unless somebody else had something else.
I had questions, but it's not really changing the minutes, so.
Okay, we'll hold off on that then. All right, we all agree the minutes are what they are? Moving on with the agenda then. Greg or Emily, you want to start off with the miscellaneous items?
Sure, yeah, I'll get started with those. So we talked briefly, Craig and I talked with Jim a bit about the county's water resources element. He did send us something this morning. I didn't get a ton of time to look over it, but it seemed like the data that they were using was the same data that they were using from the 2023 Carroll County Water and Sewer Master Plan. And if that's the case, then that is the data that we have in the plan currently.
Good?
Well, I guess that ties into my question back here. We were talking about population data that was taken with the 2020 census, and stuff like that. And so I just, across the board, anywhere we can use the latest information, I think we should do that. So I think we're all saying the same thing.
Okay. All right,
Okay, I'll move on. We talked about properties, which were, a property which was removed from the growth area. And something that came up in our discussion with Jim was about potentially for the next meeting, doing some outreach, whether directly to people or posting things on social media and on the Taneytown website about, to people who potentially would want to have their properties removed from the growth area, so that we could get that updated on the maps and make sure that that's all good moving forward.
good.
Yep, that, I'm good. I just had a question. So
Okay.
how do you get on the growth area or get off the growth area? I mean, just, do we contact people and ask them, or?
When we've gone through this previously, has been more, my recollection is there has been more interest of property owners in the update, particular property owners who were within the growth area, who anticipated eventually selling their properties for development upon annexation. This time around, even though I think we've done, some social media blitzes and put everything on the Taneytown Connect app, we're aware of a couple people who are interested in pursuing ag preservation, but they can't because they're within the growth area. There was one property that the city acquired 4 acres from the property to preserve the bypass alignment several years ago, and that was done prior to them pursuing an ag preservation easement. So we've already basically reached agreement with that particular property owner that we intended to take them out of the growth area. And that's what actually the current water sewer master plan amendment we talked about a couple months ago is, taking that part of the property out of the service area. So we know of a couple properties that are interested. I'm surprised that we haven't been contacted by some of those owners. The ones that I'm aware of, we have advised them that we're going through this process and now's the time that we would be updating that growth area. But I am surprised that more people have not reached out either to make sure their property stays in or that they want to be taken out. So far, I'm only aware of properties that want to leave the growth area, not anybody that wants to be added. Seems like everybody wants to go into ag preservation.
But in general, if they're in a growth area, then there's at least a verbal discussion and everybody agrees tentatively. There's nothing legally binding, but tentatively there.
Right. The property that we have agreed to take out of the growth area was brought into the growth area because the owner at the time envisioned annexing and selling for development at the time. And I think, just the only other property I can think of that we brought in, I think, was just a verbal conversation with probably the 2010 plan. So,
Okay, thank you.
So everything out off of Fringer Road, back Fringer Road on the left, that's all in soil preservation, right?
Back here, isn't it somewhere?
So on Fringer Road, as you're leaving 194, once you pass the first farm, which wants to go into ag pres, property on the left-hand side, outside of the lots that were developed, has been put into a tree bank. So that was in the plan for, I believe, medium-density residential development, as were all the properties, the small lots along the right-hand side of Fringer Road. And again, during the 2010 update, that property was also all slated for property that's now Bollinger Park was intended or envisioned to be medium-density suburban residential, but now most of that is open space.
Else? Okay.
Emily, it might be helpful to maybe share that map that shows the growth areas and where those excavation needs are.
Let me pull up. So this doesn't have the Taneytown limit on it, but it does have, or sorry, it does. And then everything that's yellow is growth area. All of the green is our preservation easements, and then the blue is rural legacy easements. If you can see this map here on the left.
One on the growth area, right?
So I think to Jim's point, making an intentional reach out to those properties within the growth area, just to make sure that they, wish to remain in that, within that, with that distinction. And if not, we can eliminate those now.
Good. Any further comments?
And this is of course also your opportunity or our opportunity to discuss, if we think the growth area should change to meet the goals and objectives of the draft plan also. So it's not just what, the result of the outreach that we may do, but of course what the commission sees as being the best plan for us as well.
Well, I'd say there's two possible things. First, reaching out to property owners and making sure they actually still know that they're in the growth area, because I would imagine some of them don't even know that they're in the growth area until they try and do something that goes against the growth area. Secondly, and I'll save this probably till later on the future land use. I had some fairly decent questions on
Okay.
on the areas for that.
Emily, we're ready.
Okay. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is population data. Let me stop sharing this for a minute. So previously we talked about how the current actual county numbers are very different from the 2020 census numbers because of needs crossing. The issue with the plan is that the demographic section, the housing section, the economic section, and municipal growth, a few other places scattered throughout, we use all 2020 census data as well as 2020 American Community Survey data. And the reason we use both is because the American Census only asks about 3 or 4 questions that are relevant to what we're showing in the plan. And American Community Survey gives all of that other background data. So while they're two separate things and they are slightly different in terms of the numbers, they are basing it off of the same time frame. But if we go with the 2024 or whatever time frame we use for current county numbers, it kind of invalidates all of that other data because the county doesn't have all of the other information that we need for the rest of the plan. So what we can do, leave all of the current data as it is, add a disclaimer at the beginning of any section that shows the population data saying, there's a huge disparity between the 2020 census data and the current actual estimates from the county. And this is why those exist, and this is why we're showing both. Then in the population projections, we can include the county's number, the current county number, and base population projections off of that number, because we're not really using any other data to reference that table in any other section. So we can just kind of add a couple places where it matters, talk about what the population actually probably is, but explain why we need to continue using the 2020 data and 2020 numbers in the rest of the plan.
Be confusing when,
I was gonna say, my biggest question is the fact that how can we use these numbers to plan when we're already at 2040? For population.
Craig, we can't hear you.
You're going to use the projections for a planning standpoint. But
Well, I'm looking at the projections and we're already at 2040.
Right, but once we get the county number and we put that in the projection, that number will change. So that table is gonna change once we have the actual updated number.
Okay, because, yeah, that was my biggest concern, was the fact that we're already way ahead.
Right.
So
Right.
we weren't playing with real numbers.
Right, so everything else references the 2020 number, but that population projection table, you'll see I left a blank row for 2024. Depending on, I think Jim said they update those monthly, so depending on which month's data we want to use, put the population number in there, and then the rest of that table will change.
And then the other detailed information with regards to population characteristics, there is no better information than what's in the 2020 census. So in terms of economic data or travel data, those types of things, we don't have anything other than that we are using the most recent. So the projections will reflect the current data, but everything else will reflect the census data.
Where we reflect the 2020 data, we're going to indicate the disparity somehow, right?
Right,
Yeah.
correct.
So does that, Harry, does that address your planning for the future? I don't see where that gets us.
I'm not real,
I'm confused, kind of.
I am a little confused on it, just because we're gonna have whatever algorithm coming up with the projections based off of now 2024, which is fine, but if that doesn't align with anything else, if all of the other projections are based upon incorrect population data, I'm not sure how the rest of the projections are actually going to be anywhere near what we need.
Well, there really aren't any other projections. The other information in the plan is just an evaluation of that data with regards to, like I said, economic characteristics, the demographic breakdown. There is no other information. That information is not collected in that level of detail, except
Well, but we've got, throughout this, we have predictions on housing units, predictions on all kinds of things. Is all of that going to update as well?
So the housing unit projections are based on build out. It's not based on population. So where we try and rectify that is what your build out projections are based on zoning and what your population projections are. So how do those two numbers jive over a certain time period? So those housing projections are not population or census based. That's strictly land use and zoning from that perspective.
Well, but nobody's going to build houses for no people. So I fail to see how they're not connected.
Well, I'm not saying they're not connected. I'm saying what we're looking at is the housing projections are based on build out, right? And then you have your population projections.
So when
what
you say,
you're saying is within the time frame of the plan, there is sufficient land available to accommodate population projections through a certain time period.
so when you say build out, you're basically saying the lots are 10,000, I can put 4 houses on there, that's 4. This lots are 10,000, I can put 4 houses on there, it's 4. So just,
Yeah.
Well, but if we're basing that off of future land use is already out of date based off of this map. Based off of what is being proposed right now already with 2 different developments. Because I don't think and the name has run out of my brain again. The south of 140 west of 194 housing development, I don't think that's going to qualify under the very low density.
Talking about Mountain Brook.
You talking about the Meadowbrook?
Mountain Brook. Mountain Brook.
Mountain Brook.
Mountain.
Brook.
That's
Same
because
reason I
you can
can't
see the
remember it at
mountains.
all. So that's already out of date with what Mountain Brook is proposing.
Way out of date.
They didn't do it yet, so.
No, they didn't, but if we're all looking at future stuff, that's what's on the table at the moment. And we've got Sewell's as a medium density development. I would imagine that plot's gonna have to be medium density as well to handle what's being planned there if they manage to get the cut through to 140 and all of the other ifs, ands, and buts. But that's kind of where I'm looking, is because we've got that's out of date already, and then we've got other low-density areas that then have medium density on the outside of them. I mean, that seems backwards to how cities normally develop. So, I mean, I'm just kind of curious how this future land use was come up with, because it seems a little backwards to how things naturally develop with more concentrated within the downtown area and spreading out from there.
Chris, you had a comment?
Well, I wanted to make sure that, we understand everything that we're talking about, because you're looking at, like Harry said, you're looking at 450 plus homes at Mountain Branch. You're looking at
Mountain Brook.
Mountain Brook. Still can't get, how many years has this been? I still can't get
that
it
one right.
I think it's contagious.
Sewell's Farm, you're looking at 300 plus there. You're looking at 50 homes out at Garnet Ridge. The Sells Mill property, which is kind of out there, and we haven't seen anything official on that, but that's out there in the wind and could be another 200 homes. There could be an additional 1,000 homes in the next 10 to 15 years in the city of Taneytown. And so we need to make sure that our projections are honest and looking at that kind of level of development, because I think it's coming.
Read comments from Craig or Emily on
Yeah,
that?
so certainly we'll need to adjust the map to reflect those current proposals, or what seems to be realistic from that standpoint.
There are also a couple of changes to the land use map that were made within the last day or two. So I will show an updated one. I mean, I can show it now if we want to go over the future land use now, or we could finish out the municipal growth discussion and then get into the maps.
Well, but I think it's all kind of tied together
Yeah.
Because at this point, like I said, if we're not going off of, for our projections that are on here, say for the housing, if we're not going off of what's actually, for lack of a better term, in the pipeline, I know that's more of a specific term for development, but what's actually being proposed right now, then, okay, yeah, that's a little bit closer to the one on the left.
Mm-hmm. Right, so for whatever reason, these couple of properties inside the city boundary were not included on the future land use map here on the right, which is what you were sent last week. So that has been corrected. One thing I do also want to note is, so this is all kind of anticipated to be R10,000. The Maryland Department of Planning considers the R10,000 to be medium density, even though by Taneytown's code it is low density. So that's why on here it's shown as medium density. Even I think it's 2 to 8 units are considered medium density. So even I think the R20 might be kind of close on the cusp there, but so that's why this is shown in the way that it's shown.
So that's actually one of my questions on the maps. How come we don't use our zoning designations as opposed to low, medium, and high? I mean, everybody thinks low, medium, high, they think something different, but if you say R10,000, we can look it up. And it doesn't matter what Maryland calls it, because if you say R10,000, we look in our book and we know what that means.
Yeah, well, with future land use, it's important to separate zoning in the comp plan from future land use. So we speak in general terms because adjustments may be made to exactly what you're talking about. In terms of, hey, we want this to be a little bit higher density within this range. So it's you don't want to confuse future land use with zoning at this point.
I agree with you. That's why I wanted to use our zoning designation, because I was confused.
Yeah. So we do have a zoning map that shows your current zoning as well. Which is here.
Right. And you'll see that this whole area and even parts of this R 7500 here are all considered medium density. So the reason why we went with Maryland's planning with their requirements and their designations is because there are places that we compare this data to the county. And it's not really comparing the same thing. Don't call it what they call it. And similarly, if in the future you're comparing to neighboring municipalities, we all kind of need to be using the same terms and the same designations to be able to compare that data. So I did include on one of the pages down here on page 181 of the municipal growth element, we did include a disclaimer about the fact that Taneytown considers most of the land in the future land use plan to be a low density, but Maryland planning considers it, and that's why we've used that on the map.
So those areas have a range to work within. So instead of, again, we need to shy away from assigning specific zoning categories to specific parcels because this is not a zoning map. This is not right. That's the next step in the process is looking at potential rezoning of properties. And that's not what this plan is to do. This map isn't reflecting that.
I don't know.
I don't agree with that. Taneytown is paying a bill, not the state of Maryland.
Yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
I guess I don't really agree still. So like if I look at the future land use, you have the medium density, but I mean, is that R10,000 or what is that? I mean, I don't know. And even on if I look at that same area on your zoning map, it's grayed out and called a growth area, so it doesn't even say it's R10,000. So, I mean, there's.
Right, because those growth areas don't have any zoning associated with them currently, but because they're not part of not within the city limits.
But the fact is that if we call it R10,000 and you look at our code, it says, hey, it's R10,000, and all by the way, you can apply the community village concept to it. So anybody that's looking into it can.
Yeah, but that still doesn't change the number of units per gross acre, so.
True, yeah. Well, I thought the community village allowed you to increase it.
It just allows the clustering. Community village doesn't allow for any more units, it just allows the clustering of the units, up to 50%.
A potential density bonus. Generally, you start out with a comparable number of units, though they're just clustered and
You can pick a
preserving
larger
open space that
multiplier,
way.
I thought.
But they're right. They can layer up amenities in the community, bartering basically for additional units.
So if we refer everything according to our city of Taneytown zoning, what effect would that have when the state looks at this? Is this going to fall under the state's guidelines?
Well,
What they're looking for as the key issues?
it would certainly be out of sync with everyone else's plan across the state.
And right. So do we want to be out of sync or do we want?
I think we ought to sync up. I think that, it says very clearly here that R10,000 residential zoning is intended to be in the Taneytown's a low density, but the Maryland Department of Planning says that that's medium density. So let's just call it medium density and be square with everybody else in the state.
everybody else in the state is not going to use this document for planning.
Yeah, but it still, it doesn't, well,
But it's still the same reference. So it doesn't matter how you classify it, it's still going to refer to the same, if we go back to our,
relative,
Right.
because it's not a defined, it's a relative
right,
thing. I don't know that, I think we're arguing about it a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, you can look at that, so you look at the orange areas within the city limits, and that tells you, oh, okay, that's the kind of density that we could expect to see in those orange areas outside of outside the growth area. So it's just looking at development patterns, right? We're not necessarily saying specifically what the zoning is going to be, because it might change.
Do we have any place in here where it gives our ledger for zoning R 10,000 equal to low density, high density? Anything to define which is what it represents?
Yeah, only for the R 10,000 where there was a statement in there that said we differ from Maryland. That was the only place I
But
saw
I was
that.
thinking if we had a key, then we could go with what the state says, and that key would reference that to zone R 10,000 or whatever. So can we establish a key somewhere?
Yes.
On
Yeah,
the, yeah, just,
we do have a section in the existing land use that goes through all of the different zoning designations, explains what they are, how many dwelling units per acre they would have, what they're intended for, what their uses are, which we can definitely refer back to in this section. And I can also kind of pull some of that and include it, repeat it in this section just so it's extra clear.
You guys all agree to go that route?
I'm perfectly fine with that, yes.
Harry?
Yeah.
Holly? Still learning. Okay, you got a lot of catch up to do, but anyway, Bill, Harry? All right, if you can put the key somewhere, either with the definitions that you have, I remember there was a page in here that had definitions. If you put a key there, then we can move forward.
Yep, okay, will do. Okay.
I don't think my question's really gonna get. I was kind of letting it drop because at some point, it doesn't pay to keep arguing.
That's right.
Does that updated future land use map, does that address some of the questions? that you had?
Yeah, I think that
Certainly
does
clearer,
address.
yeah.
That does
I
address some of the
was gonna say, I have other questions about why things were done, but I'm gonna let it ride for the purpose of more brevity.
well, I mean, this is, the only thing I'd say about that, Harry, is, this is our one chance to get it right, so if it's something that you think really
Are
matters.
we expecting medium-density housing on the other side and encircling an industrial area?
You're talking about in
Bottom left.
bottom left.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are you still on zoning, the zoning map,
It's on the land
Still
use
on
map.
future land use.
future land use?
Yeah, future land use, we've got medium density residential by the Maryland definition, encircling basically the industrial area, the proposed industrial area. It almost seems like that would cut them off from the city. Yeah, the industrial and then hanging out down there.
Of course, if the bypass.
Give me directions where we at. Are we out past
he's talking-
Kraus Mill Road?
Yeah, it's actually talking out there by Kraus Mill.
That's what I thought, yeah.
So,
Yeah,
right,
bottom
so,
left.
Gotcha.
yeah, those are the couple of farm properties and Evapco, and then it's this section out here. But I think that this is all part of one parcel, but I'd have to go back and look.
Why would we want any type of residential? Why not keep that going as industrial? To be able to expand the industrial base, because you're still out there within the railroad tracks.
Yeah, I would agree, and knowing that there is a dearth of industrially zoned property available in Carroll County, I think that that is something that could be attractive in a future land use if that was all going to be industrial.
Sure.
Bring
Yeah,
more
we-
jobs, that would bring more jobs into Taneytown.
Exactly.
Other than,
And I also note that that's on the course of the bypass.
yeah,
But I didn't say that out loud.
Yeah, we'll definitely change that.
I was to say, barring that on the growth areas, until we make sure we've got buy-in from the people that still think they're in the growth areas, it's kind of not worth arguing at the moment.
right.
Because it seems before we make this final, we may want to go ahead and get that confirmation from people so that we're not planning the next 10 years and then somebody comes along and says, oh, by the way, no, I don't want to do that.
That'll always
Yeah, they
change.
never realize that they're in the growth area.
I just want to caution, and I do think that we need to do some outreach, but just caution against the blanket idea of giving everybody whatever they ask for, because if we do reduce the growth area and properties do go into ag preservation, that is in perpetuity. So that means you are, limiting the growth potential of the city forever. So it's
But
not.
otherwise, we're taking private property that's not ours and saying you can't do what you want to do with it.
That's not true,
And,
though.
and to a degree, you're right. So it is,
I
it
mean,
is kind of a
that's-
balancing act, so. And
I'm kind of
again,
not
if-
on that train.
Right, so if you are not in favor of planning,
No,
just everybody does whatever
there's
they
a difference
want.
between planning and having, and basically telling somebody that didn't know they were in the growth area, by the way, you can't do what you wanted to do because you're in the growth area that you didn't even know about, and you lost your opportunity to say, I don't want to be in the growth area because we didn't ask you.
But we can change the growth area anytime we want. If they came in and said, hey, I didn't know I was in here, and it's next year, update.
We certainly can do updates to the plan more frequently than 10 years.
15.
But look at where we are
I
now.
got it,
So
yeah.
realistically,
If there's
to
a
do it out of
specific
cycle would be.
issue and somebody comes in to discuss it, then we address that at that time. For now, I mean, that's what our growth area is, and that's what sitting here today, that's what we think it is. I agree, give everybody an opportunity to come in and speak, but.
My point is just, once it's gone, it's gone. And, in keeping with the, the general state, smart growth principles of focusing growth where the infrastructure is and so on, as well as the county's push to focus growth in and, immediately around the municipalities. So if we shrink our growth area substantially, then that has an impact on, and yes, we need to be focusing on Taneytown, but we need to recognize that that potentially runs contrary to, objectives of the state and the county. If we are expected, in the county's master plan to have a certain land area for future growth, and then we make it much smaller and say, oh, we're only going to grow to X number of more houses, that has a spillover effect on the county's comprehensive plan, and we just need to be cognizant of all that, that's all. And again, once, when properties go into ag pres, it's forever.
Well, if it goes into ag pres, that kind of serves as a buffer area for Taneytown.
It
Because
does,
then we are locked into that area.
right.
Yeah, because I caution you to look at the map that has the ag pres and the rural legacy easements on it. We are already locked in pretty much all the way around.
Yeah.
So to lock ourselves down any further may not be the most advisable thing we could do in a plan at this point in time.
Yeah, and even the future land use map shows those ag pres areas as well. So those green areas. So you are becoming encircled by those properties.
And just as a note, I realized that the rural legacy lands are not shown on
Farmhouses
the
plus
land use
one
plan, and they will be.
Okay, I mean, I just, like I said,
Does it now? That's not industrial.
I don't like dictating to people who aren't even in Taneytown what they have to do with their property.
Well, I mean, I guess it does to a degree, right? But to Jim's point too, is you have to be able to plan and look for the future, look at what the future capacities are and what the future needs are to serve those areas. So again, it's just a plan. It's not the regulation. And it's just a matter of, for some people, they would view it as a benefit to be in those growth areas. So we just need to start with something and to keep some growth potential for the city. Unless you don't want to grow.
Well,
Go ahead and say it, Harry. Let's get it out.
in several meetings that they're around, it has just, it seems like there's been attempts to legislate to people that aren't in town. So that's why it's starting to eat at me a little bit. But I'm good. Keep on going.
All right, so where are we at the moment? Jump back to the maps. So, and last thing we talked about was the population of 2020 or 2040. So where are we at the moment?
Okay.
Well, before we jump off of there, so are there any other comments on the future land use map? We can look at maybe modifying that one area to grow that industrial future land use for industrial. Were there any other specific questions or input on the future land use?
Tiffany, would you want to move up and join us in our conversations as the county? You have any? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I want to make sure that you have the opportunity as the county.
Yes,
Because you're going to sit on it.
So I did have a question on,
Tell us what map.
on the future land use map, I think that's one. So out there, where the new development is by Sells Mill Road, there's a purple.
Yep.
Okay, so purple means that's industrial.
Yeah.
On the zoning map, it's R10 or 20,000. So it's
I
R20,000.
believe that's the wellhead.
Yeah, I think that needs to be updated, needs to be corrected.
Sorry, which
Which
area?
one?
So, I guess southeast corner, there's a kind of a triangular shaped property along Sells Mill Road. And in the lower right of that, there's a small property that's in purple as industrial. And I believe that parcel is where well 17 is.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's the other thing. That's actually the church, the Baptist church property. So it should be really commercial, not industrial.
Well,
It's-
just because it's a well and it's a city, why would it be industrial?
Right. I think that's the wrong color on the map, so
Yeah, it's
it would be,
should be blue.
residential.
Okay.
Well, the church property should be shown as commercial because they're commercial properties.
Well, churches are allowed in residential districts.
Right.
Generally, the
so-
zoning for them is commercial, I thought. That's
No.
I
what
think
it was.
on here that churches are shown as institutional.
Would you repeat that, Emily?
I believe on the future land use, churches are shown as institutional use.
Okay, yes. Church anywhere.
Right.
So, Emily, you gonna
So I
make
guess
that
that would
change
be
then?
blue then.
Yes, yeah, we'll fix that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, on existing land
This
use.
is from county data, so if there are any things on here that, like that you notice that are inaccurate, just let us know and we can update it.
Yeah, it looks like it's right on the existing land use map.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Barry, you had a question too, back over towards the Vapco
Right.
area of Kraus Mill
Yeah,
Road.
Kraus Mill Road. Now, that isn't industrial right now, is it?
Let me run down and
purple area.
grab the current comp plan map. that is currently shown as future industrial.
Future industrial.
What does?
The area around Crouse Mill Road and the railroad tracks
Well,
is
now, if
pretty
you
much
make that
all
I didn't
industrial.
think you could create an island like you have with them 6 houses there. You surrounded them 6 houses then with industrial.
If that property ever annexes, the intent would be to bring it in as an area for industrial growth. So nobody's,
That's because you don't, if you lived there, you wouldn't feel that way, I'll bet.
I probably wouldn't, but when I die and
Yeah.
my kids don't want the property, they
But
can sell it to somebody that wants to annex.
Same situation happened in Allendale. Those three,
Yeah,
four houses
yeah, with the
right there.
Browns, yeah.
Yeah, where Evapco bought it. So you could have the same
And-
situation here.
They're on the other side of the road.
What's the difference?
Right, and that's,
Where-
they're actually
Brick
surrounded
house
by
also.
Evapco-owned property. That Evapco does own that
Yeah,
property
those
Yeah,
houses
around
right
them.
there.
property, yeah.
Yep,
Both sides industrial.
and I'm sure if the price is right, they could be bought.
So basically, everything on the current comp plan map that's in the growth area along that, I'll call it Cross Mill Road corridor, is currently slated for future industrial. When you get to Route 194, there's a small piece that's in the growth area. It's adjacent to the LaFavor property. That is on the current map as the equivalent of R20 or low-density residential. But everything on the other side of 194, around Evapco, is all industrial. And I think the intent there was to concentrate all the industrial use along the planned bypass.
Yes.
10, 15 years ago, when we talked about this, I thought we reserved a spot there for general business. Favor.
LaFavor, general business was extended all the way down to the existing spot where LaFavor construction is, along the road frontage. Not the entire depth of properties necessarily.
You're talking about this set right here, right?
Yellow spot next to LaFavor,
Yeah, Francis Scott Key Highway.
Francis Scott Key Highway.
Yeah, there's one little yellow parcel,
Yep,
and then next to that is an orange parcel, which probably is should be general business, or?
because I know we talked about that'd be a good spot for a convenience store.
Well, I was just
That
taking,
was 15, 20 years ago when we, remember that,
Yeah.
Ollie?
just looking at Google Maps real quick, that pink or purple little square bit up top we were talking about, or where were you guys? Were you out there?
Right, Francis Scott Key, right next to LaFavor's.
We're talking about.
That little
this
yellow
right in
spot.
here.
Oh, okay,
The
because
little yellow, one little yellow spot, is that,
I thought you were talking about the industrial.
Looks
up
like
top,
about an
never
R
mind.
10,000 or something like that.
That's already industrial, that's Feral Gas and Westminster Hydraulics and such.
sure is. Yeah,
Okay.
We did some quick changing here.
Yeah,
We changed it and changed it again.
yeah.
Yeah, because there are some really weird things on this. I'm seeing some stuff that's on the future land use map as low-density residential that I know is actually zoned general business. That run along 194 from Keenan west to the Meads Crossing entrance. For all that entire stretch is zoned general business, but it shows in the future land use map as low-density residential.
Space between the railroad tracks and 194?
Yes.
I'll have our GIS guy take a look at that and make sure that all of the things, that are zoned commercial currently are that way on future land use.
Guys, I think we're talking here, just going around and around again. So let's clarify where we're at this point, so we're all on the same page. Chris? Dan, you had a comment?
Yeah, I have two comments about the colors, but clarify where we're at, or?
No, I'd like to clarify where we're at, because we're bouncing back and forth, and I don't know where we're at.
So my only question was, some of the colors, it looks like you're running out of ink, so I assume that that's something you can fix. You can see it there like around the park, you got green with the light green inside it, and it's all over. There's some purple, it's kind of, so it looks like the colors aren't filled in.
That it's spotty.
Yes.
So that's actually because of the way the county collects the data. They do it in 5-meter sections. So each square is represented on the map. So it's kind of like pixelated. We can kind of smooth it out, I think. I'll have to talk to the GIS guy, but that's just how the county data is collected. So not every parcel is, fully institutional necessarily. It just depends on what they designate the actual use of that 5-meter
Well,
section.
I think one of the things is the fact that the park off Roberts Mill has a little tiny bit of green, and it has a suspiciously institutional-looking lake, and then, but the green doesn't go all the way around the lake, and that park definitely takes up that entire parcel.
Yeah, can we get that changed? Because there's no reason for a parcel that is entirely in a park
All right.
to show some measure of being residential.
So I see that in a lot of different blocks there.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
And then the
Memorial Park is like that.
Yeah.
the other minor comment, I was wondering if we could change the color of blue and the blue water. They're just so close together. It's the institutional and the blue and the water.
Yeah,
Emily and Craig, I can send you a PDF of the 2010 comp plan map that maybe, because I think there is some disparity between what you're scraping from the county's data and the map that we're accustomed to.
okay, sure. Yeah, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I don't have it as I only have it as a PDF, unfortunately, I don't have all the detail files and stuff.
Yeah, that's no problem. And also, I've discussed with the GIS person, I don't think that some of the colors are necessarily the most readable, but again, this is the exact colors that are used by Maryland Planning, so that's why we've stuck with those. I don't know if they picked that blue for the water, but I think that that's something that we can safely change.
Well, maybe you can just throw some hash marks through the pond or something just to
Sure.
differentiate it.
Yeah.
But I think more important than that is to fill in the pixelated parcels, because it's not just that part of the parcel that's commercial, or, you don't want to be mistakenly thinking that half of Memorial Park, we're going to build houses in it.
Somebody may want to. What if
If there's money in it.
Go ahead.
So, in the growth area map we have, I guess there's areas around that we have flood zone areas. I didn't see any maps that showed like where our
Give
flood
us a minute, Tom. Keep up. Growth area?
growth area, yeah. But I guess none of the maps show what's it called, the 100-year floodplain.
Yeah.
So nothing is shown anywhere. I don't know whether it should be this map or another map or.
Well, it frankly ought to be on some of these land use maps, because it certainly affects the land use. I mean, if you wanted to,
Agreed.
if there was something that would break up a parcel, that would be it. Large sections of, like, these large swaths of this area here are in the 100-year floodplain.
I don't know if that goes on everything or not.
A lot.
But I just think, to Chris's point, if it's a floodplain, it's not a growth area, or it's not anything for
Yeah,
it.
that should be an overlay. We can add that to the future land.
Yeah,
use
maybe
map.
like do a, like, again, use a crosshatch or something
Yeah.
to just to define that area within. So even though the color boundary may not change because it's within a parcel, but just something that depicts the fact that, you know, that's where something isn't going to actually happen.
We've done that in previous versions, so as Craig said, we can do like an overlay, so you'll still see that a parcel is R10,000, but you'll also see that there's a portion of it that's unbuildable because it's in a floodplain.
All right.
Or then when we're talking about a planned major street, that it's like, oh, well, there's, 600 feet of floodplain to cross, so maybe that's not the best place to put a road.
Not the best place to put your DPW building, is it? Where they flood every time now?
And I have
All right.
One more map question, that's the only one.
All right, tell us what map.
The last one for me, okay, I'm looking at the downtown Taneytown map. It's got everything crosshatched in red. And I was just wondering if we could have one that showed the historic district and downtown on the same map.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Because we have that discussion a lot, and it's kind of hard
Oh,
to,
it's in here somewhere.
Two separate maps.
I mean, it's actually three if you
Yeah.
lay in the zoning, what is actually zoned downtown business. Because I think that this map with the red hatching is not quite, but almost the Main Street, designated Main Street map. Jim, I think it's pretty close to it, but I don't think it's quite
Yeah,
it.
that looks Main Street area.
And so that's, which is different for this, there's another map in here that shows the historic area in blue, this one that shows the historic structures in blue, and it is narrower in places and extends further in places. And then, if you then lay that over with the zoning map,
What was the question? Who asked the question?
so I did. So I just was asking if we could have the historic and the downtown over each other, because
An overlay, yeah.
we talk about that a lot.
Yep,
How would it be to put, if you wanted to put the historic district as an overlay on the zoning map?
Together somehow.
So you would see what
I'd be okay
portion,
with that.
you would see, because the historic district encompasses parts of R7500, downtown business, and R6000, and I think maybe even a little industrial, I'm not certain about that. But if we showed it as an overlay, you could see both what the, underlying zoning district was, but then also what the boundary of that National Register district are.
Fine with that, yeah.
And maybe, we talk a lot about the designated Main Street area. Maybe that's another one that we could do an overlay, because that doesn't match up to,
Right.
specific zoning boundaries.
it would be a little busy, but all three of those in one place would be good to see and know. Although it might be a little busy to look at, but it's kind of important to know that that those represent three different things.
That'd be helpful for us.
Same spot, you know what I
And I
mean?
guess maybe we could do a map that the overall map shows the area that is the historic district, but then within that, you would see the zones that make up that district, and then it also could overlay the Main Street designated area. So you'll kind of see all the different aspects of the layering.
I think that would be helpful.
I think to
I
do
was
like a
trying
whole
to,
city map and then isolate these things on it, it's gonna get very busy and very small. So I think maybe a larger scale that just focuses on the historic district would be the best way to have some
I was
clarity.
just trying to count streets to compare the two. It's not real easy, so.
so while you're on that historical map, I don't see the Lutheran church designated on there, and I thought that was in the historical
So that was-
structure.
That was one of my questions about the historical map. So the things that we have on here are what's on the National Registry. The previous map that I found, I think it was the 1997 plan, had a bunch of other properties that I'm not sure what organization designated those, but I was wondering if you'd like to include those on as well.
Well,
That's this.
I guess
makes
I'm,
good reference.
yeah, but I'm wondering what, what makes something count as an historic structure? Because I look at, there's one way off to the left on the map. I have no idea where that is. That's,
Francis Scott Key, isn't that Francis Scott Key, out of Keysville Road somewhere?
Is the Kiefer Brubaker Farm.
yeah.
think that's
That's-
Francis
yeah,
Scott
that's-
Key.
Yeah, no, that's not,
That's not out there?
Terra Rubra, no. Terra Rubra's further out 194. I think the one, so, one is obviously Antrim. And then there's one not far to the left of that, that would appear to be the Catholic Church.
Right, yeah,
That's the Tannery House.
Oh, that's the Tannery House, thank you.
Yep.
okay.
The Rudisville
Then which
Tannery.
one all the way to the left of that?
So the one way out to the left of that is the one that she's talking about, the farm, the Brubaker,
Kiefer Brubaker.
yeah.
If we want to show more of the historic structures, I don't really know the rhyme or reason as to, why certain ones were nominated and so on, but, we do have a little more extensive list in the 2010 plan. We can carry that
I
over.
like to see him, yeah, I like to see him,
And-
we're
and
talking
some,
about what's
you know,
downtown,
right.
and
And-
that being
yeah.
historical district downtown. I'd like to see it, I'd personally like to see it. How about the rest of you?
Well, I
And
mean,
some of them are no longer existing, like the Case Farm, the house was demolished, for what was known as Flying Colors of Success that never was built. But, that historic structure's gone. And I think there may have been a call out even for Mountain Brook Farm on there, which is probably going to be gone
Well, the house is already
the-
gone,
if the-
essentially gone, it's a shell.
if the project is approved.
I think it would be good to have them on there, but I don't really find this map to be useful without a name of what it is. So if like it's number one is this
Right.
place, number two is that
Right.
place.
And we
Yeah.
can,
Need a key.
we can carry that forward.
So on I think it's this last or second to last page of the agenda, I've included how it's shown in the plan. So just because of the way he makes the maps in GIS, I haven't added it to the PDF, but in the plan, I do have labels next to each one, designating which one is which property.
Do we want to set a criteria as, it has to be at least this old to be considered, or this
Well, what makes
important?
it historical? What's in the register? What's the requirement for the register?
I think that the list that we had before was properties that have been nominated or have been designated as, individual historic structures. Otherwise, you just have the historic district where you have properties that are contributing or not contributing within the district. But just because someplace is, 50 years old doesn't necessarily mean that it's a historic or a contributing structure in the district. And I don't think it's, I don't think we have the capacity to do the research to try to do nominations and designate things. I think we just take
Well,
the list that's out there.
The Lutheran Church is
and-
coming up on its 250th anniversary here in a couple of months, so that's old.
I had one question on the boundary of the historical district. To the west, we've got it stretching into a non-annexed version, non-annexed area that, looking on the map, basically consists of some relatively new houses with solar panels on top and a piece of a farm. Is that still historical district, or?
I do not know the rhyme or reason of why the line was drawn where it was in 1986 or 1984.
I was gonna say, if it was me, I'd move it to Harney Road, but even then, you've got a bunch of stuff that's gone up on Harney Road in that little
Yeah,
bit
Right.
that
it
goes
shouldn't
up.
go
There's a
any further than
portion-
Pump House, frankly.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a portion of, open space or farm field,
Yeah.
as part of that.
Well, but
and-
what, it probably went down
and
to
it-
Harney Road to include Sopples Inn, that's what.
Yeah, I would
what
imagine,
it-
yeah.
And it may have, the intent maybe was to include one of, maybe some older structures that were scattered you know, in that what's now open space, I really don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm just, like I said, I'm just trying to compare what's here, this guy.
Yeah, that little piece at the far end.
Well, but there's a little bit on the corner that is still in, that's in our,
That's a
that's in,
Catholic
I'm talking
church.
about the that stuff is
looking for
not in
Lutheran.
town. And that's
Yeah,
a piece of, that's a piece of a farm, and that section right there is not in town.
yeah. But again, the historic district isn't a political boundary. It's not, you know, it doesn't matter if it crosses a jurisdictional line or not. It's, you know, it's supposed to be about what's within that boundary.
It allows for tax breaks is what that's the only,
Well, but I'm also, again, I'm seeing in other areas where if people want to say in the historical district, you need to be able to, you have to do this sort of architecture, you have to do this sort of thing, so these boundaries start to mean things.
Yeah.
It's not just arbitrary things, and if we've got people's houses in the historical district that were built in the 60s,
Right, right. And again, I can't speak to why the line was drawn where it was, why it includes, some 1960s, 1970s ranchers that in the 1980s weren't even, you know, considered historic.
I guess the wrap-up of mine is we may want to look at the actual boundaries of this and see what exactly we want to do, because some of it isn't making sense based off of what's there.
And, and the design standards that are in place for the historic district are, I'll say, context-based. So it's not prescribing a particular design aesthetic so much as trying to fit with what the immediate surroundings of a site are. So, you know, there are areas within the historic district that were built in the, you know, 1920s and 30s. There are areas that were built in the 1890s. And the idea is to try to be context sensitive, to try to make sure that new construction is compatible with what's around it. So what's built out on the end at East Baltimore Street, where the district ends, might look a lot different than what's built on Westview Drive across the street from the 1960s ranchers. So it's really about, you know, what's immediately around that property that you're looking at.
how was this boundary set? Do you remember? Do you know?
Before my time, it was like 1986 or 84,
Yeah, it was done in
something like that.
1986. Yeah, that's
86.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
Alter that?
And usually the boundary is established based on some type of historic study, and that's how the boundary is established. So I don't know if that's the way they did it back in 1986, but it might not be as simple as just changing the boundary. It might require other actions by the city to do
Well, and
that.
that gets into my argument of these mean things.
They do, it definitely does. So that maybe that's one of the recommendations of the plan, is to go back in and reevaluate those boundaries to make sure they're still reflective of the you know, still achieving what was originally intended.
And we have, you can certainly pull up the nomination for the National Register District if you're really interested in learning more about it. It talks about how the, you know, I guess, like Pennsylvania German building style, you know, was prevalent during, you know, the Victorian era here, and talks about the evolution of the types of buildings, and goes through and highlights, you know, certain locations around town. But that nomination form basically argues for, you know, why that line was established the way it was.
Right.
I think Senator Getty was the person that did the nomination form back in the 80s.
You also have to remember that at the time, somebody probably thought they were doing us a favor.
The guy that owned Savills Inn at the time.
Yeah.
It may have been. I mean, that could have been some of the, you know, that line could have been derived in part by some of the property boundaries at the time, which has certainly changed a lot since, you know, properties have been subdivided and replatted over the years.
Hey, Emily, you want to pick back up where we left off?
sure.
Page 2.
Paul Harvey.
Let's see, so we can go over the build-out analysis before we jump back into the remaining maps that we have on here. We did revise the numbers. Again, that's based off of the future land use plan. And in this, we also added a bit more explanation in here about how we derive those numbers, the fact that we did take out things like floodplains and wetlands, steep slopes, anything that's not developable, and the build-out number is based off of the remaining land, and what it's currently zoned at or used at, and then what could potentially be built out. So that's the very, very bottom of page 179, and then skipping over to 181, and then
What-
bottom.
What page, 179?
Yep, the very, very bottom, the one
Got it.
called future land needs.
Got it.
Jumping to 181.
Yep.
Continuing on.
Now, this will get updated again based on some of the comments that we received tonight as well.
Right.
Moving on to page 182, or
Oh, I didn't, yeah.
were you
Well-
back on what
Well,
page?
I was just looking, actually on 181, so
Yeah.
we have at the top of the right-hand column, it says, "It is assumed that 70% of the acres is usable for land," and I was just, where did the 70% come from? I can surmise it's because that's the builderable land, but, I mean, why wasn't it 75, or why wasn't it 65? I was just curious. That
So
is-
that's just a kind of general assumption number that the 30% will be infrastructure and utilities, and then the remaining will be taken up by property or homes.
So is that based on the net or gross area? Right now, we're based everything on gross.
Yeah, well, this is based on that, because we're taking out the floodplains, those areas that can't be developed.
So you're talking about the net then on this?
Yeah, correct.
70% net.
Right.
Well, it's 70%, because obviously you have to make accommodations for road and stormwater basins and things of that nature, right? The infrastructure elements associated with development. Not every acre, even if not every net acre of developable land is used for housing. So, about 30% of that land is used for roads and stormwater and those types of infrastructure items.
But I mean, like, the 60 and the 20 and the 10% open space, 10% commercial, 20% or 75, are all those standard numbers that are used across the United States, or?
At least Maryland, are they used in Maryland?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I was just curious.
Sure, yeah, it's just, they're general development numbers to make sure we're accommodating for everything that we need to accommodate for when we're actually building.
Closer we can stay to the Maryland standards, I think we're closer when we try to get final.
Right.
How do those percents tie to, or do they tie to any of the maps for the future land use?
Yes, yes and no. So for example, this property here, that we're showing as medium density, it would be 70% of this property would be developed, and then 30% of this property would be sorry, 70% of the net of this property would be developed and 30%. So we're not really showing sort of like how some of these other parcels that we've talked about where part of the land use is shown as one thing such as commercial, and then the rest of it is shown as other land, typically woodland or just open space. We're not really designating that in here. It's just kind of a general, what we're splashing it on the map because we don't have more detailed instructions about what it would look like.
But to answer the question, yes, it is based on the future land use map, the build-out projections.
So those numbers will change after the changes from tonight?
Right, after we change some of those areas to industrial, yeah, those will be updated to reflect those map changes that we talked about.
Dan, you had a question?
Next question.
Next
Are
question.
you ready?
Yes.
No. So
What page?
I'm back on page 1, okay?
Okay.
So on the right-hand column, second paragraph down, so it starts with residential development. So when you get down there, the one sentence says, this growth was dominated by single-family detached homes, which was blah, blah, blah. Okay, single-family attached homes. And then it says, multifamily housing also increased, okay? Then after that, it says, however, other forms of multifamily housing declined or disappeared. So I don't know how many different kinds of multifamily units we have. So, I mean, it just didn't make sense to me when I read it. So one paragraph, we're saying it increased, and one sentence we say it increased, and the next one we say it decreased or declined or disappeared. So I don't know what that means, those two sentences.
So let's define what multiple families.
Sure. Yeah, I think that the first one is talking more about row homes or townhomes, and then the second one is talking about apartments. And some of that, we discussed a couple of meetings ago, that what was in the census was not necessarily correct for apartment buildings specifically. I think it said that there were more than there were.
As in 0.
I think there's one that's considered an apartment, but I'm not sure the name of it.
Well, I was confused when I read it, so if we can clarify that, that'd be.
For sure.
I
So
think the only,
I'm still not quite clear. So Garnet Ridge, there are duplexes and triples. What are they considered?
Yeah, so multifamily homes is 2 families, right? So a duplex?
Is that a
or-
duplex then?
Or 3, I think we have a classification for 3
Three.
homes attached.
I think
Three, it
that,
becomes a townhome.
And then after that, it goes to townhomes or something like that. But, so if it's more than one family, to me, that's multifamily.
Okay, so as a house or as a department? Department.
Well, so I think that's the exact point. So multifamily could be a house, it could be 3 houses attached, it could be a row of townhouses, which I think can go up to 5 or something like that, or it could be an apartment, because they're all multifamily.
Right.
Okay, so when you say decrease, when we had the house fire or the apartment fire over here, that decreased. That decreased.
I guess that's true.
Right?
the,
So but
It
where,
wasn't close to
where
Hollywood.
else would we have decreased?
the way our code defines it, multifamily is an apartment, a duplex, which is an apartment dwelling containing 2 dwelling units, one above the other, a garden apartment, which is like what was built at Taneytown Crossing, that was the 10-unit apartment building. That one is an apartment structure with at least 3 dwelling units, but not more than 12 dwelling units. And then retirement home is also considered multifamily, which is an apartment structure containing at least 3 dwelling units, but not more than 8 dwelling units for retirement home. And then quadruplex is a dwelling containing 4 dwelling units, which are joined to one another by at least 2 common party walls and or attached permanent structures such as a garage. So the multifamily, these are all buildings that are on one lot. So a semi-detached is like the double houses in Taneytown Crossing and a lot that we see on East Baltimore Street, the side-by-side, those are typically separated by a lot line. So they're actually two separate properties, even though there's one building with two dwellings. There's a lot line that runs down the middle of it. So that's considered, that's not considered multifamily. So the
Wouldn't
multifamily,
involve townhouses, though.
so townhouses are considered single-family
That's
attached.
a total different thing.
Right, so they're single-family, but they're attached instead of detached. But, so the multifamily is where there's multiple dwellings within one building, and they're not separated by a property line boundary. At least per our code. Now, whether that jives with the state's language, I'm not certain.
Yeah, that's a pretty typical breakdown, though.
Well, the planning commission, a year or so ago, we divided a house, right? Remember there was a house that
Oh,
got subdivided?
Yes, yeah, I think they were going through the Board of Appeals to do,
Yes.
right, or maybe it wasn't a Board of Appeals case, but right, they were trying to subdivide an
Single house.
existing semi-detached house, right, but the house had never had, even though I think it had been built as 2 units, the electrical and the plumbing was not really separated in a way that allowed them to, it was a house that was like built as a duplex, but I think it was on one
One lot.
lot. And they were trying to divide the lot down the middle.
Right, so
and
they could
there
sell
were
the
all
one
kinds
half.
of-
Yes, I
Yeah,
That
remember.
might have been 5 years or so more.
yeah, I think they eventually abandoned the idea because there was so much like plumbing and building code stuff that was, would need
You
to
wanted
be
to separate the
changed.
two.
That was a good question, Dan. All right, do you have anything else? Page 178,
Not till 182.
182. That's how I'm on 182 also. 182.
So my question was for you. When did we build the fire station? I thought it was 73. This says
74, that's what the plaque says on the thing, 74.
the old,
Oh, the old one?
the one, yeah, not the one that we got now, the
Oh.
one that was before that. So this says a 5-bay station. So does that mean what we have now? Is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? That wasn't 74, that was 94, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was say that was 90-something.
No, 70, what we have now was 94.
Well,
What
the addition
happened-
was.
And then
The
one-
original was 74.
Oh, it was 73, okay. But anyway, so this one here says the company's 5-bay station opened should be, it says 74, okay, so that would have been
That's right.
2-bay in 74, but now it's a 5-bay
5-bay.
in
Yeah.
94.
Expanded.
Okay,
Yep.
I didn't have a chance to look it up. I thought it was 73, yeah. And then my other question was, we talked about station, the number of EMS runs a year. I guess I just put a question mark there because I didn't know if that was accurate or not. It just says about, so I guess that's okay.
Well, what it says there, options including adding a third ambulance crew on peak shifts and reserving land on the west side of Maryland 140 for a satellite. I don't know where that came
I
about.
mean, yeah, it's an option, I guess, but yeah.
I mean, it's an option, but
That's
I
why
mean,
I added a question mark there.
Well, and again, when you need to go back, and this is where the discussion from earlier in the day comes in, call volume suggests the station will reach functional capacity in 10 to 12 years. Well, that's based on population growth, and if we're already at the 10 to 12-year population growth, numbers, we're going to be pushing that limit much earlier.
I think we're at 1,500 calls a year now. Anyway.
yes, I think so.
Well, that would make sense because we're already at the 2040, population figure. So it makes sense that we're already at the 2040 number of EMS runs. So we, that probably should be updated accordingly.
Yeah, the number of runs is from their website. They did update it recently, so that is the most recent. It's an average of the last couple of years at 1,318. But I can definitely update that growth implications, especially considering whatever the population is now based on the county number.
Since we're part of the county EMS side now, the figures need to be updated based on the present,
Okay.
because that's going to affect our adequate.
Yeah. So based on your comment that it's now handled by the county, on page 183, we talk about how Taneytown can manage future infrastructure investments and stuff. So they talk about expanding essential services such as water supply and EMS capacity. I'm not sure how much the town can do about expanding EMS capacity anymore. It was a couple years ago.
But if it's in here, it's an option.
I'm,
And even if, regardless of what the option may be,
yeah, so the town could help improve fire, but limited capability to improve EMS, I think. But anyway, if it says EMS, I think it should say at least fire and EMS. If you think there's something that the town can do to, they definitely can help the town
whereabouts are
right
you,
now.
whereabouts on that page? Left-hand, right-hand side?
Right-hand side down at, where there's 4 bullets in a row. So it says expand essential services such as water supply and EMS capacity. So they can absolutely take care, or they can do something about the water supply.
So along with an EMS capacity, do something, add the word fire,
Fine, sure.
fire service.
I'm good with that.
I have a question under the main heading of anticipated financial mechanism or financing mechanisms. Aside from the fact that yeah, if we're accommodating projected population for the next 20 years, which we're at, but it talks about sustained investment in schools. We don't invest in schools. Utilities, basically, we're water and sewer. We don't invest in the electric. Roads, yes and no. We've got a lot of town roads, so that's fine, and emergency services and recreation. But the big one was schools and maybe clarifying utilities.
Sure.
Because the county handles schools, and this paragraph's about what Taneytown plans for financing and maintenance.
Sure.
You've got to keep the word utilities, though. I think so.
Water and
wanna
sewer.
just have-
That
I was
covers-
gonna say, if you want to have utilities as a cover-all, but we aren't covering all utilities.
You want to just say water, sewer, and stormwater utilities?
We might want to do something with solar. Pardon me?
Utility.
That's a utility, so if you
You wanna
were to
just say
leave
city
utility in there, I
utilities?
would cover it.
Just go ahead and keep it at utilities. I retract my my complaint about utilities.
But definitely scratch the school part.
Definitely scratch the school part. The rest of it, have a good time. We can roll with it.
Any other questions or comments on page 183?
Double checking, but probably not.
I'd like to argue with you, but I'm not going to say anything, but sustainable investment in schools could also mean the city help to provide utilities and stuff to the schools in different means other than what
That's
you mean by
utilities.
investment. It doesn't necessarily mean money or things like that, but it could mean other obligations that the town may want to be involved in for the school.
Well, here it looks like we're doing,
I remember we created a loop at the school on Devanian Road to provide water on either way if we had an outage. So that's an investment in the schools.
that's a utility.
Investment in the school. Even though the utility goes to school, it's an investment. I think the word investment and school should stay because that's part of our adequate code.
So that, you know,
That's one of the three. Safety and welfare. I'd like to see that stay in.
I was gonna say, except that, yeah, the town argued over a crossing guard for the schools, so I think we're stretching that a little bit on the investment in schools, but if the rest want to keep it, then we can keep it, but I think it's misleading.
yeah, because I mean, I see your point, but generally speaking, if there is going to be another school built in this area, it probably will not be in the city limits, just for a lack of property, suitable property for that.
We're already building onto the school. That's in the city limits. There's addition going on to the
Yeah,
elementary
but
school right now.
we're not adding to the water and sewer,
are adding to the
structural,
water.
the actual infrastructure that we're adding is not actual. We're not putting a bigger pipe to the building.
A lot of backhoes, a lot of digging out there. I have to argue with you, but I personally think it should stay.
I'm okay with keeping it. I think that, I think there probably are other investments that the town could make to help, make walking to school better or other investments that would help improve the school.
Dropping the
I'm
speed limit
okay
to
with that.
20 miles an hour, that's an investment in the school. Unless you live there on that street.
All the streets now.
Don't get me started on the 20-mile-an-hour limit. Anyway,
All right,
Okay, when you don't show up,
and we're keeping it in.
you vote traffic cameras,
All right.
you lower the speed limit.
Emily,
how long?
Craig?
before you-
that's ready to move on?
All right. 184, the biggest change here, so for that services and infrastructure outside of the growth area section, we went back and reread the state requirements, which are quite confusing. And we also looked at what some of the neighboring municipalities included in their comprehensive plans for this section. And it seems that it actually is probably adequate to simply say, we don't supply services outside of Taneytown, or the growth area. So we don't really need to plan for it since we don't provide it. So that whole section has basically been removed, it's changed to that one paragraph to say just that.
Good.
Yeah? Good, Bill? Barry? Okay,
So,
continue.
So on that page 184, so on the right-hand column, the, looks like second paragraph down, the last line says that the city is committed to compact growth and farmland preservation. So I had to think about that for a little bit. So if it means compact growth as in we're going to try to, what do you call when you build out in town?
Infill development.
Infill.
Infill, yeah, if we're gonna do that, I'm in favor of that, but if I think of compact growth as in, I'm gonna put
High
a bunch
density?
of townhomes at the edge of town, I'm not in favor of that, so.
Yeah.
I just,
That's compact housing, but not necessarily compact density.
so, just a comment, I guess I'm not saying to change it, I just wanted to point that out when I read that.
We can clarify the wording in that a little bit to make sure it's directing it more to that infill idea rather than dense growth.
Okay,
Okay, any other questions on 184?
Just at the very bottom of the right-hand column on 184, it talks about facilities which are not limited to the city boundaries or growth area, or,
That part's all going away.
okay.
That was 3 minutes ago.
So, well, this is what it should be. So, if there's something in there that shouldn't be in there, then we can change it.
Yeah, basically, we don't support outside the growth area. Thank you, good night.
Yeah, well, no, this was,
Outside the corporate limits.
well, it talked about volunteer run, which, fire and EMS services are, not, I don't want to say they're not volunteer run, but as the county brings the hybrid system in, how much do you really say that they're volunteer run anymore? I don't know the workings of your department, so I can't.
Let's just don't go there.
Okay. But that's why I didn't know if you wanted that left in there or not. That's why I brought it up.
We are, I read that a couple times, we are a volunteer company. Period.
I think in that paragraph we were just discussing about service and infrastructure outside the growth area, we could probably just end that paragraph with Taneytown generally confines its utilities and facilities to areas within the city limits. Because it does say generally, and
Okay, yeah.
while we had a recent annexation that was done because of a failing septic system, and we made them annex in order to connect. But there are instances where the services have been extended. For example, there's a farm next to the wastewater treatment plant that is on city sewer because the sewer interceptor runs across their property, so they were allowed to connect. So it's not universal, but I think just leaving it with generally confines is probably the way to go and not get into too much detail there.
Got it.
Sounds good. Yep. All right. Anything else on, what page are we on now?
185?
185. The only thing I had circled was on the right-hand side, 3/4 of the way down the 25% slope. Didn't we just talk about doing something about that? Properties no greater than 25? Didn't we talk about that recently?
Where are you at, Jim?
We're on the right-hand, 3/4 of the way down.
The third bullet.
Yeah, the third bullet, and
Service by debt.
25%. So I just want, I'm okay with that, I just want to point it out. Good?
Yep.
Okay. We're good. We're good, okay, we're good.
Okay.
So the only question I had, so we talk about the sensitive areas, 100-year floodplains, and et cetera, et cetera. Should be nice to have a map of those areas.
We do have one, it's not completed. We have one started that we will, so it will probably be in the sensitive areas section. We can include it here again if we want, though.
As long as it's in the document somewhere, I'm fine with that.
We can reference back to it as well and say, see map on page, whatever it is.
Okay, you good? No,
Sure.
we're good, thank you.
Okay. Let's see.
Did for 185?
186?
186? I don't know why, but I circled under short-term 0 to 2, amend zoning. That's, what are we trying to do there? Are we, Jim? That over to you. Sorry. Short-term, 0 to 2 years, implement a pathway. Amend zoning. I always have a question when we try to amend something.
Well, one thing that had come up, I think it was the last meeting, talked about wanting to provide provisions for the net outs, right? And so your density is based on the net acreage, not the gross acreage.
Right.
That seemed like that was kind of a.
And that would, I think that's exactly what that speaks to is, we've talked about this before, whether we want to send something to council and ask whether or not the council wants to entertain that.
And I'm good with that. And then the other thing is, the next bulletin down, why do we want to plant trees off-site? Why not require or put the trees on-site or some type of forestation on-site?
A lot of times.
I think
not.
that's what
They
that
want
speaks to.
sites, They put it other places.
Then you shouldn't build a house.
Yeah, sometimes, depending on the site, sometimes it's difficult to, um, meet the planting requirements because of site's circumstances. So rather than just saying, okay, you don't need to do it, then you have provisions say, okay, if you can't do it here, then do it. We have a park here, we have a riparian buffer here that needs to be reforested, something like that. So it's just a matter of, rather than saying, okay, you don't need to do it, providing some other way to get that planting credit.
Yeah, I go along with that as long as it's within the town growth area.
Right, I think, yeah, maybe something that encourages if it is off-site, that it still be as local to Taneytown
Yeah, that it
as
benefits
it
Taneytown.
can be. That, right, you can't just go by a tree bank that's 10 miles, buy into a tree bank that's 10 miles away.
Yeah, and I think, to that point, I guess we can strengthen that to say off-site planting requirements within the city limits.
You guys follow me on that? Harry, you good?
And I think on some of these, because they are we've adopted a lot of Carroll County ordinances. Maybe we should kind of tweak the language a little bit that would be, encourage strengthening the ordinance for this or that, because we don't control forest conservation or landscaping or maybe we could encourage, improvements in those areas through our site development and subdivision regulations or something like that. Because we could, I don't know, how the coordination would work with the county, because they review so much of our development, so many of our development projects, or so many aspects of it. But yeah, I just kind of want to make it clear that, we're not necessarily in the driver's seat for that unless we go back to adopting our own ordinance.
Maybe not being in the driver's seat, but maybe influence,
I like encourage. but-
encourage. Encourage, that's good. All right. And that's the only thing I had.
I had a couple of questions under future development, the bullet points on the right.
Okay?
On number one, this one's been beaten up in other meetings, but I would really love a roadmap to how that actually happens, based upon current physical constraints of the downtown area. The number two, we're back to using words that don't necessarily have concrete definitions such as affordable.
But there is a state mandated definition of what affordable housing is, and it's actually written elsewhere in the plan. I remember seeing
Somewhere,
it.
yeah.
Okay.
That is, yeah.
But the definition is 30% of the gross income of the median
Area
household
median
income.
AMI, area median income.
Right.
And
So-
then, oh, go ahead.
So that's to say that actually does have a actual definition.
Okay.
Number four was just another one that I'd like to, I would love to see some kind of a roadmap that how that all is going to be accomplished. Because again, like if you, just walking, I mean, yeah, we've got the sidewalks and things and those sorts of plans. Biking, we don't have space to put bike lanes in like some of the other places. So I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not sure how some of these work with the physical limitations that we have in the town.
It's always going to require some creative solutions for sure, but I can tell you that in terms of the downtown You're asking about a roadmap to how that's happening, and I will tell you that Bob and I are working on that. And we've also had some discussions along with Jim Thomas of Envision Taneytown about, who is all about the multimodal connectivity, about paths to try to connect Bollinger Park to Memorial Park, to the middle schools, to the skate park, kind of, you know. It would take some doing and will take money that obviously we don't have, but maybe we can try to reach out and get. And it may take 20 years, but there are ideas and things that we've actually had those conversations in the last 2 months.
Yeah, on Bollinger Park, it requires land that isn't in Taneytown, so, yeah.
Exactly, and which is, of course, obviously one of the issues.
So can we put a bike trail through,
You can.
but I don't want to get, I mean, we're already getting
Yeah.
in here this
And
evening.
there is some of the commission members who have been on for a number of years might remember the Carroll County Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan that incorporated a number of multi-purpose trails, you know, that were envisioned within the city and Taneytown environs. For example, connecting Bollinger Park to, you know, the city proper, you know, with a multi-purpose trail, and trying to connect the parks, you know, to one another with multi-purpose trails. And a lot of that will be dependent upon incorporating that into new developments as they come online. But, you know, we are at least seeing with some of the newer subdivisions like Meads Crossing, and if Mountain Brook Farm does come to fruition, you know, they will both have, you know, a trail network in addition to the sidewalks along the road frontage. So we can continue to encourage that as properties develop and maybe, you know, make some of those connections that we want to see. But it certainly is a long-term goal.
And just by having it in here is worth having it.
Yeah, the value of putting it in the plan, that puts you in a better position to apply for and secure grant monies as well.
Harry?
Yep.
Okay. Where does that put us here in the moment now?
Okay. We have a couple more maps that I would like to look over. Most of them are pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory. The first one I just wanted to show you is a context map that we're including in the plan. We don't show this whole thing, we're zoomed in a little bit more, but just to show where Taneytown is in relation to the county, in relation to the state, and in relation to other states and major cities.
Could we add Harrisburg maybe? And I don't know if the map goes far enough west to catch Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I think that in the plan, let me actually pull it up. I think I have it.
Pittsburgh doesn't, that's too far out of that map.
Yeah, Pittsburgh might be off the left edge, but certainly Harrisburg is something that probably should be.
Yeah, I think that we.
Well, I have a thought that you would put Gettysburg in there, because Gettysburg is an important city in reference to the city of Taneytown. If anyone's looking at this map to see what, you know, I think Gettysburg, what do you guys think?
I agree.
You got to get to Gettysburg, a lot of people go through Taneytown.
Yeah. And of course, the argument could also be made about adding the city of Frederick to this map too.
I think, yeah, Frederick, in terms of, you know, it's an employment center that's
I mean,
a lot of residents.
my first
go
thought
down
when
to
I
that
looked at
corridor.
this is Philadelphia. Well, maybe that's where the firm is that's working on this. No punch taken.
We did have New York on here too, I will say, but we don't know.
But yeah, I think Harrisburg and Frederick would be good, would certainly be good contextual
Gettysburg.
additions, and a notation about Gettysburg, certainly.
Yeah.
Because if you know, if part of the intent is to look at this from a resources standpoint, certainly tourism is a resource, and Gettysburg tourism is, speaking from my own experience, Gettysburg tourism is a resource.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm right with that.
All right. Moving on, Emily.
All right. Next one is zoning. Nothing really changed from your previous zoning map, except a couple of these properties up here, which were annexed and added in. I also did realize that the Taneytown boundary somehow got removed on us, but that will be added back in.
Okay.
All right, all good on this one?
Okay.
Existing land use, we talked about a little bit already. That is just what it is. But like the future land use can alter some of these parcels that are kind of partial land uses and make sure they're all, show the full land use that's on there.
We're going to go to consistency of the colors, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a quick thought on that existing land use. I think a lot of these, there are a number of undeveloped property that the existing use is agriculture. I don't know if we should be showing that rather than the land use designation if we're talking about existing use. So there's areas that are in our comp plan, for example, that are in the growth area for, say, future industrial.
Right, which are
But those
currently farmed.
properties are currently farmed. As is, for example, the Sewell Farm is in the city limits. It's zoned R10,000, but the current use is agriculture.
And with Mountain Brook.
Right, same with Mountain Brook Farm, same with the Hoffman property.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we should, if that's getting, at least for what's in the city rather than the growth area. I'm just not sure.
We can add an overlay, so like we were talking about the steep slopes and the floodplain and things like that. We can just add an overlay because for whatever reason, Maryland planning lumps ag into this category of other. I don't know why they don't really distinguish.
Okay.
Maybe it's too hard to tell from aerials, what's ag and what's not. But we definitely can add that as an overlay.
We good with that, guys?
Yeah, just some way that we can denote that, this is.
Yeah, I mean, if the state does it a certain way that, I don't really have issue with it, I just.
Right.
But yeah, but I mean, if it's going to be a
Knowing
useful
what's
tool
out
to
there.
us, it's good to know what the current use is, as opposed to.
I mean, it would be a pretty fair statement, I think, to say that, any of the undeveloped properties, in the growth
pretty
area
much
are
for farms.
probably in ag use.
Yeah, we can definitely add that. Okay. Next is future land use. I think we've already talked about this enough unless anybody has any other thoughts or questions that have come to them.
Probably
Yeah, I
dead.
think that,
Yeah.
that horse died a little about
Okay.
Yeah.
half an
We'll
hour,
skip right
40
over it.
minutes ago.
We'll go right over it. Growth area is pretty straightforward.
The last thing. Comments? Okay.
No.
We're good.
Okay. We talked about historic structures already. Community facilities, that's another one that I included in the agenda, what the map actually looks like in the plan, because we have these symbols, but the way that the GIS does them, it kind of overlaps them and we can't separate them.
Yeah,
So instead, I've just added symbols on top with a letter corresponding to what the facility is.
is there any real necessity to this map at all? Because, we have the parks and stuff, I just wonder what the value of this map is.
Well, that's,
Community facilities map. If
We
they're not
asked-
labeled in terms of what those facilities are, it's of no value.
this map has them labeled, right? So
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm working
Yeah.
off this one.
Community facilities, is that the map you're looking at,
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah,
They're labeled.
Not on the,
There
sorry,
was a-
not on the version that I have here that I picked up when I came in.
Well,
Apologize.
Yeah, so this was a small one that was included in it. It doesn't
Because
say
it
facilities
was
on there, but
behind
in
the
the legend,
agenda
they have
in there.
blue,
You
which
you
is
probably have it.
says facility, community facility.
There's
There
a
it
key
is.
at the bottom left.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay,
I'm looking at
never
a
mind, I
different
stand
map.
corrected.
Oh, okay, I'm looking at the big one, okay.
Yeah, this is, so I don't, I
Yeah,
get,
that's an old, so that must be an older version.
well, I don't know. So Emily, the one that you're showing is different than the one that was provided in the minutes and everything, like?
Right, the
the
one
one-
that's provided in the minutes is how it looked in the plan.
Yeah, the one that's up on the screen right now is this one,
Right.
the one I'm talking, so, I know, all right, now I understand.
The one that was provided in the minutes, I think, is useful.
Yes. Yes, much more.
I think we're good with that.
All right, that's fine. I'm not,
We talked about downtown. The Ant Boulevard extension map.
Downtown, I had a note here, where's Main Street? We defining that somewhere
so,
else?
yeah, this essentially, this red hatch essentially is the Main Street boundary.
So that whole area is considered Main Street?
It,
Okay, okay.
That's about right.
it's,
Well, if you say it is, I'm okay with that.
it's close enough. I mean,
Okay.
it's pretty close to what I recall. I'd have to go back and look,
Okay, we're good.
but I think that's what this is. So, looks like it.
But we talked about, we're gonna modify this map, we're gonna show a couple other layers on here.
Right, this is what we talked about, putting the, this overlaid with the,
The historic district.
Right, right.
historic, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, the Antrim Boulevard extension.
I thought that came out,
Yeah, this isn't quite accurate.
yeah, you're showing it coming out of past Garland Ridge. I thought it came out closer to,
There are,
I know there was like 3 different ones,
Right,
but this only
in
shows
the-
the one.
yeah. in
So is
the-
there a map that would show the 3 options? Or is that something we don't want?
It may be premature, but would it make sense to show the current alignment across the Mountain Brook Farm property?
looking at it,
Because
yes.
they've
Yeah, I would-
already
I
done
would-
the
I would say yes.
sightlines
That's what we're
for
just saying
that.
about.
Seems to be the most likely,
And, yeah,
Yeah, and then,
Tender.
so that brings this line out this way a little further, so it would have to require adjustment of this portion of the line also.
Craig and Emily, I'll send you
Barney Road.
an image or
Yeah.
a link to, I think you can see it on the
Marietta.
Carroll County Developments in Process GIS map on the county's website. It might be easier for you guys to grab the file from the county site rather than me sending it to you as a TIFF or something.
Okay.
The
Yeah, we'll
word-
take a look at that.
Yeah, where the road turns to the, and starts to go north, that's actually gonna be further west than what is shown, on this map by probably quarter of a mile or more. And we'll probably meet 140 as a T intersection, somewhere just to the left, just to the west of, Flowserve.
Okay.
So along these same lines, something that we've had some conversations with relative to the property Evapco is developing that's outside of the city limits where they're doing their material storage yard. That yard is proximate to where this line on this map is. And we've had this conversation months and months ago about the proximity of that line to the 100-year floodplain and so on. And in the current plan, there's a planned road improvement that would connect Kraus Mill Road to Route 194 south of the existing acute angle intersection. And that shower road improvement that's shown in the 2010 plan aligns very closely to the proposed route of the main street on through Mountain Brook Farm. So I propose that maybe we show that as a more updated alignment if we use what's in the Mountain Brook Farm I know they only have concept plan approval right now, but that's
But that's as
closer
close
than
to any kind of
anything.
Closer than anything else right now.
But we, as their engineer has said, meeting sightline requirements, sight distance requirements on 194 really limits where that road can come in. So, if we can sort of massage the alignment of Shower Road to, meet where the Mountain Brook Farm Road comes in, we've got a four-leg intersection across there that then ties into Cross Mill Road, that ties into Stone Cipher, that ties into.
But wouldn't a
Canyon.
circle there work better?
It would,
Probably
absolutely.
will. In the long run, that may end up what will happen.
Everyone okay with what Jim's saying?
Yep.
Yep,
So,
Good idea. All
we're
good.
good, Jim.
okay.
Emily, we're good.
And I can, if we need to do a Teams call or something, we'll set that up next week maybe.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. Road classifications. So I did notice also that there's two categories for principal arterial. I'm not sure why, but I have asked the GIS person to remove one of them. So it just says principal arterial.
Can we back up just 1 second on the Antrim Boulevard extension? Something, and I know we've talked about, Jim and I have talked about this, but we really haven't gone very far with the discussions because it's something that's very far in the future. But it was one of the important reasons to me for the annexation of Sewell's Farm, and that is the eventual possible future Worthington Boulevard extension or construction, and which would lead, so to back up an extra step, that would essentially come from the section of the bypass coming out of Mountain Brook, would tie into the end of that, go through Sewell's Farm, and then kind of, in some manner, eventually loop around and come into Fringer Road, where the tree bank is. That would require an awful lot of finagling, but it's something that if we don't try to plan for maintaining that corridor, is something that will never be able to happen. And, I can tell you from living on York Street that York and Frederick Street is not all that far from becoming what Baltimore Street is today. So if we do not plan for maintaining that corridor, we will never, ever be able to have any kind of bypass for that north-south passage through town.
We have something like that already.
It's on the 2010 maps.
Yeah, so maybe, there again, Jim, if you look at that,
Right.
maybe you can pass that on to Emily and see where that comes out, where it crosses the creek.
There are a couple other things that are in the 2010 plan about like the straightening out the little S curves on Sells Mill, or not Sells Mill,
Right,
but.
right, they were right in the
Yeah.
transportation element, yeah.
So we got to look at and see if there's anything else that we need to try to fish out of that and save. We don't want to just toss all of that to the wayside.
I think
Some of
we
this-
have some of that in the transportation section. We talk about future road alignments, and a lot of that was from the 2010 plan. So we probably do have it in writing, but we can just add it to this map as well to really solidify that.
Okay.
Good.
I had a couple of questions, moving on to the next one, not on
I want
intro.
to try to wrap this up here very
That's what I'm
soon.
trying to do. What is the difference between minor arterial and principal arterial? Because I don't think it stops at the town border on 194, especially south.
These again are pulled from either the county or even the state. I'm not sure who houses this information, but it's however they label the roads.
Yeah, it's based on traffic counts and access to those roads. So I'd have to look at to see how the county defines that, what those breakpoints are. But then maybe we can include those as a definition as well.
Yeah, I'd say there's an argument for 194 south of town to
Either
be.
direction, really.
Yeah, I don't have experience with the north, so that's why I don't know anything about that. But on the south side, I would make an argument that would be the same red as everybody else.
Yeah, we can look at that and look at how they break down those definitions. Now, those are important in terms of, you can tie certain functional criteria or requirements to developments that they must access a road of a certain functional classification. So we'll look at that to see if any of those need to be adjusted.
That, just for your information also, is the staff is working on updating the specifications for streets and stormwater appurtenances for the city. And, you know, some of the direction was to improve safety with that effort, but also part of that is trying to match up to the county road specifications and the classification system that they use in their manual. Because we basically take the county manual and then we add kind of our local things where we might want to depart or have something that's not included in their manual. So our manual's like almost like an appendix to the county manual. But that effort is ongoing and the classification is going to be part of that. So we're trying to be consistent with what we call things.
Moving on, Emily?
The economic zoning, so this map is really, it accompanies the economic section just to show where industrial and commercial general business areas are. So we're all good on with that one?
We're good.
Good, okay. The housing is the same thing, just with residential.
Again, this is straight up zoning, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I know the scale is not quite 100% here, but I was looking at the distance from Mountain Brook to 140. That space that there by
Closer.
Worthing Pump, I'm surprised it's only roughly a quarter mile.
Yeah,
That is a very short distance.
it's actually less than that. It's only like 400 or 500 yards.
Yeah. Shame it costs so much money to put it in, but that's,
Well-
for a quarter mile to make this project work.
That's in.
It's gotta be
that-
something.
That's in developer spending city money dollars, not in actual dollars.
Like 500 yards is a quarter mile.
All right, that's all I had
Might be
with the,
3.
with
Right,
that.
that's the last of the
We're
maps.
good.
Okay. We do have a couple more maps that are existing county maps that we are remaking, just because they either show things that we don't really want to show, or they don't show things that we do want to show, or in a few cases, they use a different map projection, which kind of stretches Taneytown out and makes it look very wide and just different from all of these other maps. So we just want to remake those to make sure they're all matching, they all show what we want. So some of those maps are the ag resources map. There's a comparison map between the 2010 city growth boundary and city boundary versus 2024 city boundary and growth boundary, and then the Carroll County zoning map. So those will be coming up in the next, for next meeting probably.
Okay,
And then other than that, that's all we have for this week. So we'll make all of these changes. We'll send you back the maps and have you review those as well. For the next meeting, if you can get some advertisement out or reaching out to different, maybe specific landowners that Jim, you had mentioned before, maybe considering leaving the growth area, or just kind of getting that word out so people are aware of that meeting and can come next month to talk about that.
okay. And it looks like the next meeting is September the 23rd. I did have one question. You haven't received anything else on any other key people surveys, or we finished with that, as far as you know?
Yeah, as far as I know, we're finished with the person interviews.
Okay. So with that, look for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Actually, you can't make the motion.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second by Bill. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried, thank you. Thank you. Rearrange.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks,
Yeah,
Emily.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.